Welcome back to Crypto Lion. Today we'll be taking a look at a big decision made by Raoul and some other Bitcoin analysis. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so you'll be updated whenever we upload a new video. Raoul, the founder and CEO of Global Macro Investor and Real Vision, and one of the leading voices in modern macroeconomic discussions, described himself as a macro space player who can afford to take risks. He's not a fan of cryptocurrencies, but he's ready to use the opportunities that they open to people. Pal warned users not to follow his example and recommended that they independently research which assets to invest in. However, Pal believes that the cryptocurrency market is on the upward trend. The head of Global Macro Investor expects that even conservative institutional investors, who usually prefer precious metals, will start investing in Bitcoin next year. Therefore, Pal made a bold assumption that in a year, the rate of the first cryptocurrency could reach $250,000. Earlier, Pal said that due to the pandemic and the economic crisis, Bitcoin could become the world's reserve currency, which could lead to its explosive growth. Pal is also the CEO of Real Vision channel. Recently, in an interview, he said he considers crypto assets to be the best way to store value. He zeroes in on what he thinks is going to be the best performing trade in the world over the next 18 months, according to his release on Real Vision Macro Insider and Focus. Let's have a look at what he said. Quote, "There are times when one opportunity is so big and has such a good risk-reward that it has to be put at the forefront of my portfolio. Last year and into March, that trade was bonds. It was a home run as everything stacked up perfectly and the anticipated scenario played out. Those kinds of trades don't come around often, but when they do, you need to be meaningfully involved. This is why I'm irresponsibly longing Bitcoin. Without going through the core thesis for Bitcoin overall, I'm going to give you a high-level understanding of why I'm so bullish right now. A priceless reserve and collateral asset. In my opinion, Bitcoin is the best reserve asset and best collateral asset ever seen. It's the hardest asset ever produced with an impossible-to-change formula for supply that gives it predictability like no other asset ever. Its distributed nature also makes it one of the most anti-fragile systems ever created. Nothing can change the supply of Bitcoin that is mined. Nothing. Debunk time? And no. Power outages aren't a risk because the entire blockchain is stored on over 10,000 nodes, all unconnected, spread across the world. The risk of destroying or changing the ledger is only that of total thermonuclear global war or complete destruction of the planet, i.e. the risk is super low and we'd have bigger problems on our hands. Your gold ain't worth anything in that world either. Others talk about the risk of quantum computing breaking cryptography. Well, that is at least a decade away and maybe many decades. It's also a known risk, and many are working on anti-quantum protection. The cryptographic arms race is in play and there's too much money at stake to assume this risk is super high. The incentives are as high to solve this as they are to break it. There's a higher risk of mining asteroids for gold. The other key pushback on Bitcoin is that governments will ban it. Globally, this is impossible due to the distributed nature of the blockchain and because regulatory arbitrage will not allow others to go against any ban for their gain. And let's face it, no one is going to ban a $240 billion asset. Talk to me when it's a $10 trillion asset class and maybe we have to do some jurisdictional planning. What I'm focused on is in the next 12 to 18 months. Not one of these risks even feature in that period. The only risk that I face is not anything existential, but one where the price goes down due to some unforeseen reason. That is a risk I'm prepared to take because let's say it falls 70%. The upside potential in this cycle is probably 20 times. I simply don't know another unlevered risk-reward like it, and the timing is right. Firstly, this year we had the halving, when Bitcoin supply is halved by the algorithm. With increasing demand and less supply, prices tend to rise dramatically post-halving. What happens is that the stock-to-flow of Bitcoin keeps rising, meaning new supply is more marginal each time it happens, and thus the asset is rarer over time. Plan B has done the heavy maths using the stock-to-flow around halvings, and he projects a price of $280,000 in this cycle into 2022. He said, "I get a similar projection if we use the previous halving period and overlay it. When I use a regression on the log chart and project the 2022 to 1 standard deviation overbought, I also get to near $250,000. The deduction from that is that Bitcoin is currently correcting, and that is a good thing. It will be a pause that refreshes." So what is going to lead to this kind of bull run? Demand from institutions, and the beauty is that we can front-run it. The US has just approved more regulation towards Bitcoin, and it's now accepted as an asset across the world by regulators. It's no longer the payment method for drug dealers. The FBI proved that it's traceable, so that ended that game. In the US, banks are now allowed to custody Bitcoin, and that means that prime brokers can offer prime broking and custody for Bitcoin, leaving the door wide open for every hedge fund. Fidelity have built out a custody business too for family offices and endowments. and are actively talking to pension funds. ICAP, the giant interdealer broker, has set up a digital asset group to broker to hedge funds, banks, and asset managers. Bitwise is very close to getting approval on an ETF, which will bring in every RIA into the space. Silvergate, the US bank, offers a 24-hour cash crypto exchange for brokers, market makers, and asset managers, where other banks wouldn't touch it, and now have billions of dollars flowing through each day. All the brokerage platforms for retail brokers are adding Bitcoin as quickly as possible. Crypto hedge funds are in general up over 100% year to date and are attracting new assets at a rapid pace. And finally, MicroStrategy, a US tech firm, just switched $250 million of its treasury cash into Bitcoin, paving the way for others to diversify their treasury cash into an inflation-proof, high-performance asset. But right now, it's only a $240 billion asset, but the more it goes up, the larger its market cap grows. The more institutions can't ignore it. It's a market that is essentially short calls or is convex in nature, and it will form a reflexive loop between asset managers, endowments, and pension funds, all driving up participation of hedge funds, RIAs, and retail investors, which drives up the market cap and thus sucks in more institutions. He says, "I've been bullish about Bitcoin for a while and have made some decent money, but why am I becoming frothing at the mouth bullish?" Well, I decided to look at Bitcoin versus all other assets and see how well it might stack up over the next 18 months. Risk is a function of reward. So is this the one true trade? First, let's look at Bitcoin versus its main competitor in reserve asset terms, gold. Since inception, gold has collapsed in Bitcoin terms. Bitcoin massively outperformed. The GDX is beginning to underperform Bitcoin too, and should break lower soon. Bitcoin looks primed to massively outperform gold and gold equities again. Okay, how about versus the Nasdaq, the best performing equity market? Head and shoulders top on the daily chart. He said to note that what I mean by that is non-levered, where you can suffer a 40% drawdown and not cry or have to sell your grandmother in order to make 10 times or more potential return over 12 to 18 months. For me, it's my biggest position, and I keep adding into pullbacks. Same for Ethereum, but I'm 66% Bitcoin and 33% Ethereum currently. He then concluded that sometimes everything comes down to the superior trade. I think that trade is Bitcoin, and the longer-term opportunity is one of the biggest I've ever seen. There are no guarantees in this world, but the planets are very aligned. According to CoinGate.com, it was reported that Bitcoin has been playing a catch-up rally with Ethereum and surged around 4% to move past 37,500 levels. With Bitcoin consolidating for a while and the altcoin mania recently picking up, the social interest for Bitcoin has dropped in recent times. As noted by Sentiment, Bitcoin's social discussion rates compared to other crypto has dropped to a 2-month low. As Sentiment notes, based on historical market trends, Bitcoin and altcoins usually shift their rally periods alternatively. So once the altcoin market cools down, we can possibly see money coming back to Bitcoin. Apart from altcoins, the DeFi market is also heated up significantly. As per data on Messari, the DeFi market has surged 325% since the beginning of 2021. The total DeFi crypto market cap stands at $34.68 billion. Also, there's every reason for the money to come back to Bitcoin because of its improving fundamentals and on-chain metrics. Earlier this week, as CoinGate reported, there were massive Bitcoin exchange outflows leading to Bitcoin liquidity crunch. On the other hand, the Bitcoin whale accumulation continues. The mid-tier whales holding between 1,000 and 10,000 Bitcoin have recently outgrown even smaller players. On-chain data provider Glassnode mentions that since the beginning of 2021, over 200 such whale addresses have appeared in the Bitcoin network. Glassnode notes, the number of Bitcoin whales has seen an outstanding increase. Since the beginning of the year, more than 200 new whale entities have appeared on the network, data supporting the case that institutions are arriving. On the other hand, another data from Glassnode notes that Bitcoin balance on exchanges has now hit a 2-year low as of Thursday, February 4th. Over the last 20 days, the institutional buying in Bitcoin is picked up once again as the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust has acquired over 40,000 Bitcoins in a short time. Their total Bitcoin holdings now stands at approximately 650,000, with net assets under management at $24.3 billion. To round it up, according to Raoul, he might sell all his Bitcoin, owing to some reasons among which the press action, structural changes, or anything that might affect the supply chain to the market, among others. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Good luck and happy investing.
you.